The 2015 Mayoral Forum is presented by the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, promoting a business-friendly environment since 1894. Texas Week with Rick Casey is made possible by the generous support of the William and Salome Scanlon Foundation, supporting educational, environmental, and Hispanic cultural initiatives. The John and Florence Newman Foundation, encouraging an informed community. The Daniel J. Sullivan Family Foundation, and visionaries like members of KLRN.
I'm Rick Casey, and this is a special one-hour edition of Texas Week. Welcome to this Mayoral debate, hosted and sponsored by the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. The 4 participating candidates were selected by the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber asked me to moderate the debate, and I have selected the questions. They have not been shared with representatives of any of the campaigns. To move the debate along, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to questions. Some questions will go to all 4 candidates. Others will be tailored for individual candidates, but if others want to respond, I will give them the opportunity. At the end of the debate, the candidates will have 90 seconds for closing statements. The podium positions, determination of who will receive the first question, and the order for the closing statements were all determined in advance by a drawing of straws. The audience here in this room has been asked to remain quiet and respectful during the debate and to avoid any outbursts, except for now, as we welcome the candidates. Welcome to you all. Mike Villarreal, Leticia Van de Putte, Ivy Taylor, and of course, Tommy Adkisson. Before we get started with the issues, I'd like to ask a question regarding vision. I'm going to ask each of you, if you are successful as mayor, in what major ways will the city be different at the end of your terms than they would be if someone else is elected mayor? We're going to start with you, Leticia.
Thank you, Rick. I'm very, very thankful to be here along with people that I've considered friends and public servants. You know, this race is all about leadership. It's about vision. San Antonians have never lacked for dreaming big. We honor those that have come before us, but we know that as soon to be the 5th largest city in the country, that we have a trajectory and an opportunity to make sure that all of our families have a secure future. And you do that by making sure that you've got that strong leadership. Part of it is that infrastructure, to make sure that we've got drainage and streets, workforce to match up those skills with our employers and continue to develop economically. And then it's got to be about keeping our community safe. So what I want is a city where all can have that opportunity.
All right. Mike, how will the city be different if you're elected mayor?
Our finances will be kept strong. We will keep our taxes low. We'll make sure that every day in my administration, there is a laser focus on growing jobs, good paying jobs. I want to make sure that our people who earn an education, acquire 21st century skills, are able to launch their careers here, start their small businesses, provide for their families. We will invest in infrastructure that ties us together, starting with transportation. We need to grow in a way that unites San Antonio, and that will be my focus and my commitment.
All right. Ivy.
Thank you. As mayor, I will provide the leadership to continue building on the success that we've already had as a city. I believe it's important for us to invest both in our people and in our infrastructure. I've been working on streamlining our workforce development system to ensure that more San Antonians have the education and skills to compete for tomorrow's jobs. We also have to maintain and build out our infrastructure so that it can provide that platform for commerce. And also, I think it's very important for us to plan for the future. And so we're on the front end of developing a comprehensive plan that will allow us to prioritize our investments in the future.
Thank you. Tommy.
I would like I would like to make sure that our city retains all the great things that I've known in a lifetime of not only being born here, but raised here along with my wife, Karen. I would like to make sure that we have communities and neighborhoods where people know each other, where people actually have each other's backs, where people feel like their neighbors are truly neighborly, and that we are taking care of the economics end of this thing, both in terms of our job processes, our AAA bond rating, which I think is a very important thing. And I think that if we can take care of having crime-free, safe, and sustainable neighborhoods, we can have road infrastructure, including curbs and sidewalks. We can make sure that we have the other things that make this a great place to live, and people will say, I can't wait to get back.
Thank you. Well, let's start with the issues. And first things first, let's assume that the police and fire contracts have not been settled before the election. A Citizens Commission appointed by former Mayor Julian Castro says the medical costs and benefits of the current structure of the medical costs are rising and will continue to rise at a higher pace than the income of the city, thereby eating up more than the 2/3 of the city's general budget that they already do make up. Leticia, I'll start with you. Since you have won the police union's endorsement, do you see a way to resolve this problem without asking the police and firefighters to either pay a bigger share of their cost of medical benefits or to accept something along the lines of the less generous plans that the other city employees have?
Thank you, Rick. Well, first of all, I am proud to have the endorsement of the men and women who are protecting this community. That being said, we know that there are ongoing negotiations, and as I understand, getting very close to a resolution. This has gone on far too long for our community. I do believe that the current package is quite luxurious on the healthcare side. And we know that already at the table there have been proposals so that we can make sure to contain the cost in the out years. What is clear to me, though, is that all of this negotiation, everything should have been done way ahead of time. It is so sad to see if this has not come to a conclusion. As mayor, I would provide that leadership, and I would absolutely understand that we've got to have those parameters and set the budget and stay within that. But I think that's already part of the negotiations.
Ivy, if it's still going on and you're still mayor, how will you address it?
Well, since I became mayor last July, I've worked very hard to get the parties negotiating. When I became mayor, there was no negotiating going on, just some finger pointing and arguing in the press. And so we have been successful in getting both sides to the table and providing proposals. And the last several meetings and proposals have been quite fruitful and have been realistic. We're very close. At this point, I think some of the parties involved are looking to play politics, but as mayor, I've remained steadfast in my desire and in my efforts to resolve this issue, which is a critical issue for our fiscal trajectory here as a city. I believe it is what we've offered has been reasonable, and I look forward to continuing the discussion so that we can get to a solution that provides the best package that we can afford for our excellent public safety workers.
Tommy?
Power abhors a vacuum, and I think in the mayor's office there has been a vacuum for a long time. And I appreciate the efforts being made to try to fill that vacuum. But the reality is that it's management by walking around, MBWA, and it's also engaging these two groups, fire and police, to get to negotiations, and do not allow, if you can at all possibly prevent it, for your representatives to go out into the public and engage more fighting, more ugly words, more difficulty. I've done a lot of negotiating of family law cases in my 36 years as an attorney, and I can tell you, you do not want your clients acting up. And if they act up in my presence, I'm going to pull them in and say, stop. That's not appropriate. We're going to get this case resolved, and we're going to do it the right way. But I think this is all very resolvable.
Mike?
As your mayor, I'll bring a new approach. I'll unify City Council. I will be strong on the principle of financial sustainability. That means our public safety costs cannot run faster than our revenue. This is important because our people want more public safety. And the only way to put more officers on patrol is to make public safety more affordable. This will be my highest priority.
All right. City Manager Cheryl Scully, speaking of police and fire, has come under considerable criticism from them. Maybe it's mutual. But she's received considerable praise from the business community. In fact, the Chamber of Commerce, which is sponsoring this debate, requested only one question that I ask, and it's this one, is how do you assess Ms. Scully's leadership? Mike?
I think she's been very strong on our finances, and this is important because we have been able to earn a AAA credit rating from all rating agencies, something that no other city our size or larger has. We've been able to reduce our costs in issuing bonds. Last bond issue saved us $11 million. The one coming up, if we keep our AAA and don't drop down to a AA, we'll save $23 million. Why should this matter to all of us? Well, it means more roads can be repaired. It means we can invest in the things that improve our quality of life, like parks, our museums. What's most important, it allows us to ensure that our operating budget also provides for public safety.
Tommy, you've been perhaps our most strongest critic on this
Right.
panel, at least.
Right.
Tell us
And
more.
I think a AAA bond rating is a very laudable accomplishment. That was in 2008, okay, 7 years ago. And it doesn't necessarily happen just because somebody gets into the office. Some of it is historical, and it needs further leadership to cap, which I applaud Cheryl for doing that, and my friend, the former Mayor Phil Hardberger. I believe that allowing this negotiation and this process to be played out in the media did immense damage to their ability to settle it. And that's why I've said before, and I'll always say it, if you're coming to the courthouse as my client, do not bring distractions to the courthouse. That is not helpful. And I think what we've had here is distractions at City Hall.
Ivy, of the people here, you've worked the most closely with Ms. Scully. What's your assessment?
Yes, I've always enjoyed a strong working relationship with Ms. Scully during the 6 years that I've been a member of the City Council, and I believe that she's done a very good job for our city. Certainly, the fiscal management of the city is very important and allows us to achieve other goals. I look forward to continuing as mayor and continuing to work with Ms. Scully. I believe that through providing her with information on what I'd like to do and what my goals would be, I'm sure we'll be able to strike the right balance in working together.
All right. Leticia, in an earlier debate that I tended to forget one or two of the women, I'm afraid, so I'm going to try not to do that.
I was afraid I was going to have to say at what point must a female candidate. But thank you so much. I have had a great working relationship with City Manager Cheryl Scully from the time that she has arrived here from Phoenix. As a legislator for 24 years, I've carried so much of the legislation that has been a priority for the city. And as such, I have watched her firsthand increase the professionalism at the level of the department heads within our city. I've seen her manage exceedingly well the bond proposals and packages that the taxpayers have authorized, really the last 2 bond packages. And yet I know that in our council manager form of government that we work best when you've got a strong mayor and council, and then the city manager is able to be your COO to implement that. I look forward to being the mayor and to being able to have that strong mayor's office and strong council and continue that great working relationship with our city manager.
Thank you. Mike, at an earlier debate, you followed Ivy in a discussion of the Uber and Lyft controversy, and you offered a detailed criticism of the way that she handled it. Because of the format, she was not able to respond. I think it's an interesting conversation. I'd like for you to lay out again your criticisms. At this time, Ivy will follow you, so she'll have the opportunity to respond.
As mayor, I would have approached allowing for Uber and Lyft and future rideshare companies to exist in a different way. First, I would not have assigned the task to a city council person, the duty of regulating this new sector, if that council person had received thousands of dollars from the taxi industry. Of course, what would come out of that is a set of regulations that reduces competition and pushes out these new providers of services. The second thing that I would not have done is allowed for a council member to bring at the 11th hour amendments that had not been scrutinized by the public, vetted by the public, to the dais to be voted on. I would have also slowed down the vote. We had just had a special election where a councilman won on this issue and wanted to be able to vote on this issue, but the vote was rushed and he was not allowed to participate.
All right, Ivy.
Okay. Well, we have had a very thorough process on this particular public policy issue, though at the end of the day, I don't believe anyone on either side is completely satisfied. But when I became mayor, the process was already underway. There had been a committee that had been tasked with the assignment. We never usually don't assign one council member to write public policy. The Public Safety Committee was responsible for that, and there had been a community committee that was set up. There were a couple of iterations of that committee, and we went through a process that went beyond 6 months in discussing what sensible regulations would look like for San Antonio. When I found that that did not get us to where we need to be, I expedited review of those regulations and presented what I think is a very reasonable framework that would allow those companies to operate in San Antonio. At the end of the day, the decision is theirs. I believe that we've done all that we can to provide a sensible regulatory framework.
Leticia, can we do more, and should we?
We should absolutely do more to make sure that the people of San Antonio have choices. And these ride-hail programs are effective in so many other cities, both in Texas and the United States. It was embarrassing to see how this was handled and that we did not find a way to ensure the public safety and give our citizens that choice. That being said, San Antonio needs to realize that we do have a problem when too many people are on the road and they have enjoyed adult beverages a little too much. And this offers that protection. I know that San Antonio needs a mayor that will be embracing of technology and making sure that our citizens have those choices. I think it's a lack of failure of leadership that we don't have and that Uber and Lyft are leaving.
Tommy, you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I don't think anybody will quarrel with the technology piece. I mean, we're all, possessing of these little things here and everything else. So we support technology, but I think there's a process that has to be honored here. And I think just like a court case or anything else, this very meeting itself, there is a process to get here, and I don't think you can change it in the middle of the game. You can tweak it and you can revise it in time, but to just snap your finger and say, presto, done, isn't my way of
thank you.
Of changing it.
You know, in all my years of covering San Antonio politics, I've never seen a mayoral stage with so much experience on it. Mm-hmm. It's an impressive lineup. That also means that each of you has been in public life long enough to be involved in controversies. So I'd like to ask each of you about one of them related particularly to you. If the others would like to weigh in, just let me know. Leticia, this is a bit complicated, but it's important. News reports indicate that you intend to transfer somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 from your Senate accounts, your Lieutenant Governor accounts, to your mayoral account. But a city ordinance limits mayoral candidates to $1,000 from each contributor, and it also includes a rule about how that money can be transferred from the accounts that have no such limits. The rules say only $1,000 from each of those donors can be transferred, the rest should be returned, and adds this: the transfer from each donor can be transferred, the transfer committee's available funds shall be viewed as those contributions most recently received that add up to the amount of cash on hand. In other words, the ordinance wants to limit how far back you can go into your account. So it says you must start with the most recent contributions and add them up until you come to the amount that you have on hand. The only donors from whom you can transfer money are the most recent ones who make up that amount. In your Lieutenant Governor's account, the larger one, you have $237,000 it shows in your January report. Your opponents say that if you follow that rule, you will get to the amount quite quickly because of some very large donations that came in late. And as a result, they say you would be able to transfer very little. So can you tell me how, given the ordinance, you get to anything like $300,000, and can you explain your methodology?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. You know, I was very, very proud to have the support both across the state and in my own community. First as the senator and a state legislator for 24 years, and then in my statewide run. We know that everything that I have done is the law. In fact, I sought out the best legal minds with the best expertise in municipal elections and ethics to find out how to do this correctly. We will have the report that you will see on April 9th that shows exactly how we have transferred. In fact, we went above and beyond by contacting, handwritten, every donor to make sure that they wanted to bring this across. It's an election season. You're going to see a lot of mud fly, but I think that this is going to be a case where you will see very clearly that we followed the law.
Tommy, you and Michael held a press conference to deal with this. What's your response?
Well, this is a tar baby that she should never have touched. All you do is get tar all over you. The more you talk about it, the crazier it gets. And I don't think it's going to pass muster with the voters. So it would have been best, it would have been smarter and more fiscally wise to cast that aside, go out and raise money. I know that she already has a lot of the darlings of the community with her, and that's great. We all seek to have darlings that support us, but I just think it was the one tar baby that didn't need to be touched.
Mike, you actually already transferred over money from your state account. It wasn't as large. You were a representative.
Sure. Well, so I want to respond. You asked Leticia for her methodology. We've asked her for her methodology. She didn't answer you. She didn't answer me. She claims to have legal opinions. We've asked for those. We are told no. They will not share them with us. This is important to our city. It would be a terrible precedent if we elect a mayor who won their election by breaking the law. Once the election passes, there's nothing we can do. This has to be stopped. And the voters ultimately have to hold all of us accountable if we break the law.
And I understand you've already filed a complaint with the ethics office. Do you have anything else in mind?
We're going to exercise every option we have because this ultimately is about the public trust. And I suppose I'm kind of a Boy Scout on this. If I see somebody breaking the law, I want to stop it and hold them accountable. This is not right.
All right, Mike, your turn. In the legislative session 2 years ago.
I'm happy to skip this session. Go to the next question.
Somebody light a fire at his feet. In the last legislative session 2 years ago, you sponsored a bill that has been quite unpopular with tax assessors here, Houston, Austin, around the state. Tax assessors already feel outgunned against wealthy corporate interests that own big buildings. They feel like they have budgets for legal power that local public officials like that could only dream of. And the result is that buildings are often appraised at much less that they end up selling for. The appraisers say that your bill made their job getting fair appraisals even more difficult by raising the standard of proof from a preponderance of the evidence, which is the more than halfway, more evidence on one side or the other, that most civil cases depend on, to clear and convincing evidence, one stop below beyond a reasonable doubt. According to newspaper reports, the bill was actually written by Jim Popp, an Austin property tax agent for property owners. What was your purpose in carrying that bill?
Thank you for bringing this up. Let me explain this provision. It actually is intended to serve the average homeowner. First of all, big property owners, owners of commercial property or any income generating property, have a lot at stake, and they can go to court, and they often do go to court, where they get to enjoy the evidentiary standard that is much higher than what is accessible for the average Joe at the ARB, the Appraisal Review Board. So the higher evidentiary standard, you can reach that if you're willing to hire an attorney and go to court. But for the average homeowner, we just go down to the chief appraiser's office, we get in front of the Appraisal Review Board, and we try to make our case. Here's what my bill did. If you win in front of the ARB, then the next year, the chief appraiser has to hit a higher standard of evidence if he wants to bring back the same property appraisal increase that he tried for in the prior year. I think that is good for the average homeowner. For those that own a lot of property, they're going to go to court. They always go to court. But for us, we go to the ARB and stand in front of our fellow citizens to be heard. I want that process to be effective for them.
Leticia, you were one of only 3 senators, all of them women, for some reason, who voted against that bill. Why?
Mike's bill, well-intentioned, only serves those who already have millions of dollars in property. It is not the appraisal itself, it is the appeals process that is wrong. And if Mike's bill had really worked, you wouldn't see numerous bills filed this legislative session for the average homeowner. But it's not just the homeowner, it's very difficult for our small business owners to utilize any provisions of the bill that he had. And that's why we voted against it. For me, it was a difficult decision because I knew that we needed to be fair. But if you're fair only for those who already have the resources to spend millions of dollars in attorney's fees to fight it, and the average homeowner and small businesses don't, then it really isn't a fair process. I would ask you to look at the appeals process, and we know that the legislature is going to continue to address this. The bill was incomplete, and that's why I voted no.
Leticia and Tommy, do you want to weigh in on this? I'm sorry, Ivy. Leticia, you already have.
No comment.
Ivy?
No comment.
Okay. Tommy?
I will tell you that coming from Bexar County, where 62% of our revenues come from property taxes, that this is the jugular vein of county government across the state for the most part of the 254 counties. So that's why you see the counties coming up first to object. It just shifts the burden actually to the individual taxpayer. And so I didn't understand why we would do such a thing.
All right. Ivy, you opposed the city ordinance adding gays and other sexual minorities to the city's non-discrimination ordinance. You said you did it for religious reasons, but you haven't elaborated. And I think most of us understand that an awful lot of churches and religions view homosexual behavior as sinful, but many don't understand the religious basis on which to protect discrimination against certain sinners, to be against protecting discrimination against certain sinners when there are a lot of other sinners that don't face discrimination. So I hope you can help us understand what is the religious basis.
Actually, I elaborated quite a bit during that public policy debate and actually sent an email out to my constituents because I wanted them to understand my rationale on this issue. Let me remind folks that in 2011, I voted for the domestic partner benefits for city employees. I don't believe in discrimination. I believe that the city should lead by example. And so the ordinance that was proposed in 2013 had some provisions that would apply to businesses in addition to just applying to the city. And so I felt very uncomfortable with that. I thought it could put business owners, especially small business owners, in the position of choosing between the law and their faith, and I did not think that that was a position that we should take at that time. I much prefer to focus on municipal issues, like infrastructure and growing our economy and things that unite us as a community.
Real quick follow-up, and this is basically yes or no. There are several pieces in the legislature bills that are designed to try and undo the quite a few cities that have passed those kind of ordinance. Do you support those bills?
I think it would be better if we just focused on the business of the city. And I also found when I became mayor that there had been no efforts to actually implement the ordinance that had passed. And so I felt it was a political stunt.
All right. Tom, does anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay.
Rick, I think I do.
All right.
You know, San Antonio has had a history of being welcoming. And we know that our business community, our Fortune 500 companies, and so many of the business here understand that the way we judge someone on their work site is the qualities that they bring, not whom they happen to love. And it is not only a prudent business decision, but when we have an ordinance on hand that really focuses on what the city does with its own employees and what businesses do that do business with the city, I think it is appropriate. We need to continue to be a city that marches toward that equality and embrace and understand that this is a positive. I've seen religion used in past generations to discriminate on other factors, and no one should be discriminated against for whom they love.
All right, Tommy, your turn. For the past 5 years, you have fought a request by the Express News for emails concerning discussions in your emails of toll road policy. You were head of the agency that plays a major role in dealing with possible toll roads. You admit that these exist, that they do with business, but you say that because they're in a private account rather than your public account, your official account, you shouldn't have to disclose them. The Attorney General said you were wrong. The district court said you were wrong. An appeals court ruled against you. And the courts actually said that you were so off base that you have to pay the Express News' legal fees. Where does that case stand? And is there any chance voters will get to see those emails before the election?
Boy, are they going to be let down. This started out in my effort as both a member of the MPO as well as a chair to reduce the unbridled effort to toll a whole lot of the roads in Bexar County in San Antonio. And so the Express News had a different view of it, and this was one way to try to diminish my fight. And I was undeterred because I felt like they were trying to intimidate me, but I felt like that really every corporation in Bexar County that has a representative on a board or a commission has their representatives susceptible to having all their personal emails reviewed for purposes of determining if they have conducted a discussion. They've changed the law, incidentally, between what it was when I started this fight and what it is today. So today's law is not as favorable to me as yesterday's, but ex post facto laws do not permit the enforcement of that. Frankly, I'm looking to resolve this. I got bigger fish to fry, but I think it's a huge policy question for everybody that has a board or commission member on any of these on these agencies in terms of reaching into their personal emails. It's a Fourth Amendment question ultimately, but you know, I don't have time to debate and discuss
Okay,
Fourth
does
Amendment
anybody else
forever.
want to weigh in, Mike?
Transparency is very important. If we're going to build the trust that we need to tackle our biggest challenges, we're going to have to be open and honest with the public. I want to start with our budgeting process, but it's not just about how we make that decision. We need to infuse transparency and openness in everything we do. We need to take another look at how we engage citizens and allow them to be heard. Across the board, I want our city government to be transparent so that citizens can trust us and be engaged in the problem solving.
All right, back to the issues, the bigger issues. You know, San Antonio is a sprawling city. We've got traffic problems, especially in the suburbs. We've got environmental issues and protecting the recharge zone. It's hardly an example of what has come to be called these days smart growth that has really caught on in a lot of cities. Ivy, begin with you. You've already started some things, but what kind of smart growth things that are termed as being smart growth measures would you like to see taken?
Well, I think there have been positives and negatives to the tremendous growth that we as a city have experienced over the last probably quarter of a century. As we anticipate more than another 1 million people joining our city between now and 2040, I think it's very important for us to plan for that growth. And so I invite everyone to be part of that planning process, which will be kicking off on April 11th for SA Tomorrow. But in addition to that, I'd like to work with the, and have been working with the development community to talk about how we can grow more densely in certain nodes and build on areas where there's already quite a bit of activity, and then determine how we can connect those parts of town. I think it's very important that we find the correct regulatory framework that would allow people to invest in the inner city, because we've got plenty of room to grow, I think, inside Loop 410.
All right. Tommy, have you familiarized yourself with this? And are smart growth, or things that are called smart growth, plans that you would like to see happen?
Well, I think the smartest growth is having enough money to deal with the incredible uptick in population that this community has had, not just since I was born here, but in the last 5 to 10 years in particular. We've been engaged in horrific traffic congestion like never before, and it's only going to get worse. We know that, and the infrastructure is not keeping up with it. So what I did is I helped Commissioners Court approve pass-through agreements where we front the money, TxDOT pays us back. We've done, the city did a turnback where historically undertaken roads by the state end up getting picked up by the local taxpayers here. We've increased our registration fees. We passed the Advanced Transportation District. We helped pass Prop 1. We have engaged in advancing multimodalism, bike, pedestrian, and all that. I've suggested that we reclaim some of our urban corridors to the extent of 15% of the traffic on the highways by synchronizing our lights and making sure that we have that we regain the ability to do this economically.
Thank you. Leticia.
Mm-hmm.
San Antonio was blessed with an interstate highway system begun by President Eisenhower, not focused on getting goods to market, but basically troops to deployment. And because of that, we will grow exceedingly fast in a lot of the decades. We know that people love the big yards, and we love to live in good communities with great schools. That being said, we know that we've taken positive efforts. One of those is to make sure that we have our drinking water and protection of the aquifer. I hope all will go and vote yes on Proposition 1 and 2, which is the extension of the 1/8 cent tax. That is smart growth, and that is a way so that we can continue that. But we've got to focus on that transportation. We know in the upcoming bond, I'm calling for about 75% to be used on highways and streets. We've got to connect those corridors to make sure that all parts of our community are interconnected.
All right, Mike.
Smart growth to me means more transportation options. It means allowing more of us to choose to live, play, and work without being highly dependent on a car. And that means encouraging density downtown and around our other job centers that surround downtown. It also means continuing to be a national role model in water conservation. I will apply my many years in finance, public finance, helping cities manage their debt, invest in infrastructure, so that we can grow in a way that ties us together as one city, stronger and prepared for the future.
Thank you. Under Mayor Castro, voters approved a plan for an added tax to provide for a model pre-K program, one that is aimed at being one that will actually lead to better performances in other schools through training, in the regular public schools through training and modeling a full-day pre-K program. But it'll only be a model if it is absolutely first-rate. And I wonder, it will be coming back to the voters in a few years. So I wonder, each of you, what you expect to find yourself doing to deal with that issue, or should that be something that the city is involved in at all? Tommy, I'll start with you.
Well, if my memory is correct, we have had prior city leaders wanting to basically launch into the education world to the extent of even asking to appoint some of the school board members. What a perfectly horrible idea. They are called independent school districts because they're very independent and they won't permit that. I think it's important that we ask the state to step up to the plate and kindly do its job by taking care of education. I don't mind doing something to help. That's a very important area. My dad was a teacher and a coach and an educator and a principal. This is very important, but I don't want to absorb more of the state responsibility than we already have already.
All right, thank you. Leticia.
The data is in on pre-K. We know that those 3- and 4-year-olds are at a time when they are really exercising those neural pathways. It is an educational outcome that is outstanding. But we do know that the voters approved that tax 3 years ago in an 8-year tax. I probably would have structured the pre-K for SA very, very differently. It was a bill that I passed in 2001 called the Better Jobs Act that allowed communities to take these resources and put it to a vote. But I think we could have structured and been much more efficient. Our pre-K for SA program's got to be more than just taking students that already had been qualified to receive pre-K services in their own districts. We do need better coordination with our school districts. We need to make sure that it is a universal pre-K, but that it's a full day. And we could have structured this so that it was efficient, so it was effective, and had that great results.
Ivy?
Well, so many of the public policy issues that we discuss fall back on this foundational issue of education. Having a robust educational framework for our community is what will most impact our trajectory as a city and our economy. So certainly pre-K for SA is a step in the right direction and does provide top-notch, high-quality early childhood education for a limited number of young San Antonians. As mayor, I've worked to build on that framework to see how we could assist private centers that also where many working parents send their children to improve their educational outcomes. But I think we've got to look at this from the perspective that we want to be a city that encourages lifelong learning, because many of our citizens have already passed the pre-K through 12 pipeline, and we want them to also gain the education and skills to be able to compete in tomorrow's economy.
Thank you, Mike.
On this campaign trail, I've had an opportunity to sit with many of our biggest employers in every sector. And what many of them have in common is that they're scrounging for skilled workers. We need to increase the quality of our workforce so that our people can realize the joy of finding success and fulfillment in work. We also need to strengthen and diversify, and continue doing so, our economy. If we're going to have successful initiatives in education that have this aim, we're going to have to earn the public's support. As mayor, here's what you can expect from me. I will apply my deep background in economics and statistics to really evaluate and ensure that we're getting our tax dollars out of this program. I will make sure by the end of the 8 years, we have a case to make, not just to the parents who send their children to these programs, but to the hard-working taxpayers.
All right. Mayor Castro also started another project that one of you will likely inherit, and that is the Decade of Downtown. A whole lot of resources have been put into building more housing, redoing Hemisphere Park, and other initiatives to build up downtown. When you are mayor, is that going to kind of dwindle out, or is it going to be still a very vigorous downtown effort? Tommy, I'll start with you.
Well, I was born at the Santa Rosa, so I'm a downtown kid. My great-great-grandfather, John Bowen, had his place right there at Bowen's Island. I have a deep affection for downtown, but I think that we have to be fair to the rest of the city. There are donor communities out north that feel like they're being put upon by having to underwrite the rest of the city. I would like to help some of the areas whose real estate values have gone down over time to lift them up so that they're not so dependent on donor communities to provide the money it takes to run the city. So I would like to be a great neighborhood advocate for doing for communities things that will preclude them from taking the big leap down into a former great community. So that's just my my thought about how we proceed.
Okay, Ivy.
Well, as mayor, I have supported the initiatives in investing in downtown. However, as a public servant, going back to my days as an employee at the city, I've always embraced the concept of balanced growth, which means that we can't just focus on one side of town. And as I alluded to in one of the earlier responses, we already have several other areas of the city where there is a lot of activity, where there are jobs and where there's a lot of housing. And I think it would make most sense for us to also invest in those areas and then determine what's the best way that we can connect those areas so that people can spend the bulk of their time living, working, and playing maybe in one part of the city, but they could also very easily access some of those other activities. But a strong downtown is going to be key for San Antonio, not just for our tourists, but for our San Antonians as well.
All right, Leticia.
You know, every single leader has a catchphrase, and we know that the decade of downtown really was more than a catchphrase. We saw revitalization. We saw what happened with downtown living. And we know that this is kind of the front door for a lot of our visitors. But we know that a great city is made up of great neighborhoods, and the downtown is one. As mayor, I would focus on the current efforts that we have done, making sure we've got that convention center completed with over $300 million of investment, Hemisphere Park, and an unprecedented opportunity to work with state, federal, and local governments on a different viewpoint and an expanded viewpoint for the Alamo. It's not just a place to come and visit, it's a place to work. But we have to make sure that it's all of our communities. I want to see more of our San Antonians come and live downtown and play and work, not just our visitors.
All right, and Mike.
Every great city has a great downtown. Here's what we know. We actually generate more tax revenue, sales taxes, property taxes, hotel occupancy taxes for sure, in the downtown area than we actually spend in public services in the downtown area. And that extra revenue that's generated from that activity is shared with neighborhoods all around the city. It's important to keep the focus and energy and development of downtown going for the benefit of all of us. Here's what I would do differently. I would make sure that downtown is all of ours. If you live out north of 1604, I want to make downtown accessible to you. I want to make sure that you can quickly get into downtown and find safe parking to enjoy institutions like the Tobin, your favorite restaurants, historic places. Downtown is for you and everybody.
All right, thank you very much. This is not their first rodeo even this year. It's been an amazing number of debates, and I really appreciate that they have come forward for this one. I think before they make their closing statements, they deserve a round of applause. And the order of the draw is for Tommy to go first.
Okay, thank you, Rick, and thank each and every one of you. Thank the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce for hosting this very unique and healthy discussion. Many of you remember about 15 to 16 years ago that the San Antonio Spurs were playing in the Alamo Dome, and before that in the other facility that was torn down. It was said back then that the highest price, worst seating in the house was in the skyboxes of the San Antonio Spurs at the Alamo Dome. To me, it seems to me that this race is all about leadership. And if you're going to have leadership, you're going to have to have the kind of things that we did at the Commissioner's Court to save the Spurs from going to Utah, to save the Spurs from going to Memphis, and to put a great team that we're all so proud of front and center as an indication of one of the things that we think is really uplifting, inspirational, and worthy of fighting for. So, do you have a question there? You're looking like you want to ask me a question.
No, this is your time, Tommy.
Okay, great. Okay, so I helped lead at a time when everybody around the country was looking at the San Antonio Spurs coming their way. We erased doubt from anybody's mind by taking the initiative to take this best locker room in the NBA to victory in a vote that we were not afraid to take to the people, and let them decide, do you want the AT&T Center to be built? Because that's what it's going to take to save the Spurs, and we did it.
Thank you, Tommy. Ivy.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for being here in the studio, and thanks for those who are watching at home. I'm asking for your support to allow me to continue serving as mayor of San Antonio, because I believe that I'm the best qualified person. I've got the experience, the municipal level experience, which is quite specific and takes a while to acquire. I've been at City Hall for about 12 years, 6 as an employee and 6 as an elected official. I am running because during my time as an employee, I saw some challenges and I thought that we could do better as a community in relation to several issues on investment, development, and our economy. I'm not a career politician, and unlike the other folks up here, I've never run in a partisan race. I believe truly that we are one San Antonio and that we should not be defined by political parties or different sides of town or special interest agendas. I have been a strong leader that's delivered for our community on many of the important issues that face us. There's been a lot of talk about leadership, but leadership is not about empty promises made on the campaign trail. Leadership is not about always thinking that your opinion is right or that your vision or plan is the best. Leadership is about working together. Leadership is about collaborating and bringing people to the table. In particular, your representatives that you've also elected on the San Antonio City Council. And as your mayor, I have done that. And so I am working to ensure that we have the best San Antonio possible for the future, for your children and my children. And so I respectfully ask for your vote.
All right. Thank you. Leticia.
Thank you. For almost 24 years, I've been honored to be San Antonio's voice in the state legislature, dealing with complex issues, bringing people together, and having a record of proven results. Pete and I have spent our lives here. In fact, we live about a block and a half from where I grew up. And the household that raised 6 children now is filled with the laughter of 6, soon to be 8, nearly perfect grandchildren. San Antonio is a great city. Whether you've been here generations like the San Miguel family, like my family, or you just got here last month, the focus of the mayor should be on bringing people together, on making sure that we can work on the big things, to be able to look around the corner and to face those crises before they become issues on the front page of a newspaper. I know that as mayor, I want to focus on the things that are the most important, and that is public safety, it's infrastructure, it's our arts and cultural scene, it is our workforce and growing this economy, and it's making sure that we have a strong parks and green spaces. I'm asking for the support of the people of this community. I know that I have been on the Democratic ticket, but as mayor, you won't see me campaigning for anybody on the Republican side or on the Democratic side. All of my energy will be spent each and every day using every relationship, every friendship to work for the people of San Antonio. Our best days are ahead of us. We'll build this great American city one piece at a time. I humbly ask for your support for Mayor of San Antonio.
Thank you. Usually on this program, I get the last word, but this time, Mike, you do.
Thank you, Rick. I have a single heartfelt goal, and that is to make San Antonio a city of opportunity for our people, for ours that earn an education, acquire 21st century skills. I want them to see our city as the place to launch their careers, start businesses, raise their families. Every day that I'm in office, I will work tirelessly to make this happen. For me, it starts with my children, Bella and Marcos. The dreams I have for them are the dreams I have for all of our people. I want them to know the joy of realizing their potential, of finding success and fulfillment in work, of being rooted in communities of friends, family, and faith, of contributing to their fellow neighbors and our city, not being dependent on government, but being a builder of a stronger San Antonio. Success, it starts with the basics. We need to keep our finances strong. so that we can keep our taxes low. We need to ensure that we have more public safety by making it more affordable. We need to make our streets safe for all, motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists. As your mayor, I will govern in a new way. I will embrace technology, starting with bringing back rideshare. I will be a collaborator, and I will govern in a nonpartisan way. This is why I'm running for mayor. It will create opportunity and ultimately bring about a stronger San Antonio. I respectfully ask for your vote.
I want to thank all the candidates. And I want to thank a very, very well-behaved audience. That's the debate, and that's it for Texas Week. See you next time.
Texas Week with Rick Casey is made possible by the generous support of the William and Salome Scanlon Foundation, supporting educational, environmental, and Hispanic cultural initiatives. The John and Florence Newman Foundation, encouraging an informed community. The Daniel J. Sullivan Family Foundation, and visionaries like members of KLRN.